is. If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
What's up, everybody? And long time no see as we continue our coverage of the 2025 Kentucky Derby here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, host of Bettin and Boozin, normally on the HHH Racing Podcast. But now we're manning the ship for the Kentucky Derby as we're going to try and have some fun as we cover how to bet the 2025 Kentucky Derby, whether that be horizontally, vertically, or anything in between. We here got you covered, as all the young guys from Bettin and Boozin and Pacific Horseplayers will bring that your way. Of course, everybody, we have a really good tip sheet for the Kentucky Derby. Our Oaks and Derby package is live. Go to our website, hhhracingpodcast.com. Of course, I will bring it up later in the show as well. But if you go to hhhracingpodcast.com, you'll confront yourself with this beautiful website that was made, of course, by our Picks and Ponies co-host, Pete Visco. And you can see at the top of the screen, click here to subscribe to Kentucky Derby and Oaks Power Picks. And if you scroll down, what's included, over 20 pages total between the Oaks and Derby tip sheets that you will get both Friday and Saturday. But again, a little bit of a reminder, if you're a member of Team HHH, that is our year-long subscription, you do not need to purchase this singly. It comes with the package that is Team HHH. So just a little reminder there. You can see it right on the website. But what do you get? Full ABC grid for the entirety of both days. All stakes ABC grids, top 3 selections from every single podcast host and co-host on the HHH Racing Podcast. Best bets, long shots, price plays, spot plays, everything you need to be successful and crush your bets this Derby season. We here at the HHH Racing Podcast have you covered. Go, all the payment information, everything is on hhhracingpodcast.com. Click the blue banner at the very top of the screen. But guys, won't waste any more time. Of course, we're going to get right into it, but you can always listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Bettin and Boozin, we have a TikTok and Instagram, so follow us over there for short form content. And of course, our normal power picks that are given out every single Saturday are patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast for those. But guys, it's going to be a little bit of a quicker show, but it is going to be a fun one for sure. As I mentioned, all the young guys are going to be here. A lot of people already in the chat and a lot of people watching already. If you guys don't know, the live chat feature on the bottom right-hand side of the video player, please comment both on YouTube and on X. We can see both any opinions you have in the Derby, any your top picks, how you're going to bet it, et cetera, et cetera. We'll put them up on the screen as we love to see how everyone is going to play it. But guys, let's get everyone on the screen here. My co-hosts from Bettin and Boozin, I will bring on first. That feels like we've been doing this a lot this week, and we'll continue to do so as we continue on Kentucky Derby week. Patrick Kunsel from the East Coast of New Jersey, Charlie Freeman from the Ohio State University, former Bettin and Boozin co-host before he left us to start his own show for some reason. I don't know. Host of Pacific Horseplayers, Noah Maher, and his co-host, Ryan Anderson. Gentlemen, they brought in the fun group for a very serious show. Of course, how to bet the Kentucky Derby is because handicapping is one thing, but got to make some money somehow. So what's going on, gentlemen?
How's it going? Yeah, this guy in the middle left PHP because of me, or left Bettin and Boozin.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, he's got the shirt on though
for the West Coast.
Yeah.
He does. He's repping the wrong team right now.
I was told to do that for the show that Colin just did. So.
Oh, whatever. Yeah,
I was gonna say that's pretty aptly named the fun group because we are missing Jackson. Otherwise, it wouldn't be that fun.
That's very based, absolutely. But either way, guys, if you guys just missed that after this show. We just covered an hour-long show on the Kentucky Derby itself, covering every single horse, pace projections, everything you need to know about the Kentucky Derby was covered in that show. So after this podcast, go tune in to that one. But guys, and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell because we have a bunch more coming your way, including a full Oaks preview, but also late pick fives for both Friday and Saturday will be done. So again, hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell for that. But also, if you enjoy this podcast, please hit the like button. We would greatly appreciate it. I see a bunch of new people in the chat. I will get to you guys in a second, but we have 4 questions that we're going to go through today on this podcast. And it's going to be a little bit different to how we normally do it because, normally we have PPs, we go through, races and stuff like that. But for the panel that I have here, we're going to come up with, a very broad, not a very broad overview, but an overview nonetheless of ticket construction, how we approach something like the Kentucky Derby with so many horses. It's very easy to get overwhelmed. So going to cover how you construct your tickets for the Derby. Then we're going to talk about down that same vein, but more towards the trifectas and superfectas. If you have any specific horses that we're going to key underneath for those types of exotics, hopefully that be a little bit of a price and something like that for you guys. Then we're going to talk about what do you guys need to bet on the win end? What are acceptable odds, at least in our opinion, that let's say like journalism, what odds would journalism need to be in order to bet him on the win end? And we'll run through a couple horses for that. And of course, anyone else that they want to mention. And then of course, since this will be, I believe the last show that all of us will be on together, we will give our Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks picks in a quick roundtable at the end of the show. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned in until the end of the show. Guys, ton of people in the chat. Go there real quick, and then we will get right into it. Ton of people from the last show. Appreciate everyone staying on the extra 15 minutes to stay onto this show from the last one. Terry Frank, of course, is here. Katie, Mike Saletta is here. Christopher is here. He says, I'm leaving Thursday from Long Island. Going to be a special Derby win or lose. Good luck, Chris, and hopefully you travel safely and joining the best podcasts leading up. Greatly appreciate those kind words, Chris. Greatly appreciate it. Brian Anderson, of course, is here. Says, good evening, everyone. Missed the Derby opinion show. This one I'm looking forward to the most. Got to have a positive ROI on your opinions. Like I said, handicapping is one thing. Betting is another. Thanks so much, Brad, for joining. Greatly appreciate it. Delmar Dennis. I haven't seen that name a lot, but have seen you before. Thanks so much for joining in. Wishing you all a lucky Derby weekend. You as well, Dennis. Thank you for joining the show. And one more person I wanted to bring up, Racing Downwind. Of course, Jim Pillards is here. JL, that's a smart man right there. Go blue, baby. Absolutely. Thanks for joining the show. But the reason why I wanted to bring him up was because he said it. Still traumatized from Rich Strike. Of course, a lot of us are. I was alive to a lot on Epicenter that day. It all goes on, but probably exact to box some silly long shot closures with journalism. Obviously, if journalism is your top pick, you do have a little bit of leeway with that. But cool, Kev. We'll get this out of the way. Paul's not here to clown us. How is the weather looking for the Derby? 10 seconds. It's perfect. It's looking a little bit rainy earlier in the week, but Friday, Saturday, perfectly clear. Nothing to worry about at all. Paul, hope I did well and backed you up a little bit right there. Guys, I mentioned it at the start of the show, but the first thing we're going to talk about here is Oaks Derby ticket construction. We're going to go around the way to start, but of course, feel free to interject on anything anyone says about what we're going to talk about. But whether that's horizontals leading into the Derby, how do you approach it when you go to the Derby? When you come into the Derby, I know Noah. I'll start with you because I know you talked about your view on this in the last show. But when you approach the Derby, how do you kind of look at it first? How do you narrow down horses? And then how does that play into your ticket construction?
Yeah, I'll get into that shortly. But is it okay, Kyle, if I share my screen? Because I actually have the betting menu, and I think people would be
go for it
to see
Absolutely.
that. Let me go ahead and get that on the screen for you guys, so just people can know from an information standpoint. Because I was curious, I just looked at this earlier today just to see the special wagers, because that's something else that we could talk about. Obviously, we'll talk about the Oaks Derby double, but there are I think they have a new 2-day pick 3. I don't think that was there last year. And then the 2-day pick 6 is obviously a thing that is reoccurring every year. I was a little bummed they didn't have a curve sequence, because I know Ryan and I would love that, especially the success. And even Charlie was he was killing it at Keeneland. But to your point, Kyle, how I approach the race, I'm using two. I'm using journalism and I'm using sovereignty. I had sovereignty on top on the show because come race day, he seems the one that would be more appealing price-wise. And if I were to place a win bet, it would be him. But then that being said, we can talk about it later, because we'll talk about the odds that you want on horses. But just going in, That would be the two that I would key around, and then I would maybe be looking to play maybe the Oaks Derby double, because Good Cheer is not a sure thing, but a very likely winner. And then that is one way that I can kind of extract value if I'm really only going to narrow down to two in a big field of 20.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, to your point, obviously he talked about Good Cheer being a very likely single, at least for a lot of people in the Oaks, being 6-5 morning line. But I know Noah talked about when you come into the Derby, there's a lot of horses that we talk about coming into this race, run well in the preps. However, they might not exactly want the 1.25 miles because none of these horses have ever run that type of distance before. You have horses, granted, there are a lot of long shots, but horses like, maybe like Owen Almighty, who definitely might, in my opinion at least, does not want the 1.25 miles. So you can kind of slim down the field that way based on their preps and then continue to go from there based at least from a ticking construction standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, going into the Oaks and Derby, I'm a big, obviously I love horizontal wagers. I'm a big caveman player typically, but Oaks Derby day is where ABC ticket construction is key, because if you have strong opinions, obviously press them up, but it's a great day to play 3 separate tickets. Make sure you have as much coverage as you can, but more importantly, in the Oaks and the Derby, those are the best of the best horses for those 3-year-olds. So you want to make sure if you have a strong opinion, you press that up as many times as you can. Good Cheer, we'll get to this later as we talk about value. But yeah, I have opinions on Good Cheer. I think she's the most likely winner, but we'll talk about that a little later. But I'm with Noah. The Oaks Derby double, for me, one of them you have to use Good Cheer, because she not a sure thing, but I mean, everything about her fits really well in this race. But yeah, for the Derby, at the end of the day, you mentioned it, not every horse has gone the 10 furlong distance yet. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to trip. And, someone's going to swing too wide. Someone's going to come up the rail. Someone's going to get the jump on all the other closers. It's just kind of a crapshoot at the end of the day. But you got to find your opinion and hope you're right.
But that's the beauty of it, is that there's always a lot of money coming in. So no matter which way you do play, as people know, if you watch the last show, I'm very, very high on one horse in the Derby, and it's the favorite, and I will not be using anybody else in the entirety of the race. Every single wager is going to lead into one horse for me.
Makes me feel really good about my Derby pick.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm sure he'll run a very good third. Ryan, I'm sure he'll run a very good third. Charlie, I'm going to bring this to you because you and I do this a lot. She said, hi, I get that everyone has different budgets, but looking at the card, curious what your minimum late pick 5 wager will be. And I'll be completely honest, Shelly, I don't play pick 5s. 1, because they're a little too risky, but 2, I don't have the bankroll to bet pick 5. So unless I have very, very strong opinions where I might be able to single 2 different horses, I stick to more like pick 3s, doubles, honestly, just maybe even win bets on the day, because it can help kind of control my bankroll while still hitting my opinions very, very hard. Charlie, I know you're a good, obviously with your Turp pick 3s that people have seen in the past month, you go very, very skinny and you try to hit it for as many times as you can. And obviously that's worked out recently for you.
Yeah, no, when I actually try to stay disciplined, I am mostly definitely either pick 3s, doubles, or just playing the race straight up. I will definitely indulge in pick 5s and pick 4s from time to time. I'd say more so pick 4s than pick 5s. For me, like you were saying, Kyle, there's 2 things I consider personally. One, it's what opinions I have. If I can find 1 or even 2 races where I have a single that I really do feel strong about, then I'll at least consider making a pick 5. Normally, I will say, though, my tickets, I like to try to keep them, I'd say, to $24 or less, because the way I see it is if on a normal race, I'm going to play about $10 to $15 straight up on it. That to me is something where I can justify that loss. It's like, okay, then maybe I have to skip another race later I planned on, but it doesn't derail my day. And then the other part is just, quite honestly, how I'm doing on the day earlier. Obviously, if I end up hitting a bigger bet earlier in the day that gives me a lot more bankroll than I anticipated, then yeah, maybe I'll play a little more. But I'd say in general, when I try to be smart on my own budget, I try to keep any pick 5 tickets, if I ever do play them, around in the 30s or lower. I'd say normally like that 24 to 36 range is my sweet spot. But again, that's just because that's for me what I'm comfortable potentially allocating towards, as you mentioned, very high risk bets that are normally beyond the threshold that I'm comfortable with. But at the same time, a lot of times if I play those bigger bets, my strategy is to go very skinny and just, play a $1 pick 5 instead. Or if it's a pick 3, like the Turf pick 3, instead of doing it for $3, I play it for $5. Or if it is a regular pick 3 that's a 50-cent base, maybe I play it for $2 or $3. And then, in terms of just the Derby as a whole, I'd say my main bets would, be the Oaks Derby double, the 3-year-old pick 3, some other pick 3s. And then I saw some people in the chat asking questions about potentially, playing the race before the Derby into a double or the Derby into the next race, which again, I think is certainly something you can do. For me, it's less about what races it is, and it's more about how strong my opinions are. And I'm sure, Kyle, you would agree. At the end of the day, where and how I play my doubles and horizontals, I don't really care what the race is. I care what my opinion is. If I have a strong opinion, I'll do that accordingly. And I think that's the big thing people need to focus on Derby Day, is it's very easy to get dragged into wanting to be more aggressive and wanting to make all these unrealistic bets. The best thing you can try to do is pretend it's not as big of a day as it is and enjoy it when you get there. But when you're handicapping, just treat it like it's any other day and just bet how you normally would.
I was going to say, and that's going to be my mantra that I'll talk about here after Patrick kind of touches on his kind of approach to the Oaks Derby. But you hit that exactly on the head. But Pat, real quick, of course, just to add on to everybody else, but with the Derby being the way it is, and thing I'm going to talk about here in a second, a lot of people approach a day like this, and granted, a lot of people don't play for weeks to be able to play the Derby bigger, but if if you're playing every week, there's no reason to make the Derby bigger than it has to be, right? As Charlie's talking about, approach it as any other day, and still play the way you want to play, whether that's, just win bet, $5 win bets, $10. It doesn't matter the unit. We're all just trying to be right out here, and every single bankroll for every single person is different. So.
Yeah, for sure. No, I do think that, especially for myself, I could say, getting older and playing more, realizing that not putting all your money in the Derby is probably a smart way to go about it. I mean, we'll talk about, ways a little later on how to play the Derby itself. But I do think from this standpoint of the Oaks Derby ticket construction, like I really don't have a strong opinion in the Oaks as much as you guys do with good cheer. Like I think 6 horses can win the race. So from my standpoint, I'm not sure the value is really there for me to play the Oaks Derby double necessarily. But I think there'd be other ways for me to play something into the Derby.
No, absolutely. And the one thing I want to hit on at the end of this conversation, we're talking about ticket construction. Obviously, like I said, we're not talking about necessarily specific tickets or specific horses, at least in this conversation right now. But the one thing I want to touch on, guys, is, when I approach these cards, a lot of people think that, they have to lead into the Derby and they have to make the biggest bet they've, not necessarily all the time, but biggest bet they make all day in the Derby and it has to end with the Derby. This is like the put up or shut up race and stuff like that. If you don't have a big opinion in the Derby, guys, either, it's going to be hard, obviously, and it is for all of us. Maybe just play a little or even pass. Like it's not necessarily something that you have to absolutely hammer just because it's the Kentucky Derby. Treat it like any normal day. $5, $10 win bets. I'll be sitting in the Crowns Way bunker. Shout out to Tony Rollo on Saturday. So I know a bunch of us, there's gonna be a ton of fun going on in there, but I'm gonna stick to my nice $10, $15 win bets. And if I have a bigger opinion, which I definitely do, in a couple races, gonna absolutely hit the hammer, but those are the ones that I'm going to hammer because they're my biggest opinions on the day. Charlie knows that we get sucked into when we go to the track to play, almost every single race because we're there. That the difference is that those aren't. Why would you play $10 on a win bet for one of them and then play $10 on a win bet for your biggest opinion? That doesn't necessarily make a whole ton of sense from a betting standpoint. So always, if you want to play a race, do it. But I would say either play it for a little less than you would on your biggest opinions on the day. So that way, if your biggest opinion hits, you're still going to make a pretty decent amount of money on the day. And they're all just talking to amongst each other. That's why everyone's just giggling on the screen as everyone just loves to clown everybody in the chat, as in Charlie doesn't breathe when he talks. And that's a good one that we all love to. Seriously, dude, keep it. Take a look at him when he speaks. It's interesting that he doesn't. But
Kyle, at the same time, I think a lot of us would agree with that. But I feel like if you have a strong opinion in the Derby, then push.
No, absolutely.
Feel like the way that you feel, Kyle, and you think that 5-2 is value. I wouldn't get dissuaded by the big field.
Oh no,
horses, and so much can happen. Because there's so much dead money that a lot of people, the majority that are there and just playing the race, they're just putting $5 here, $10 here. And if you're right, you're going to get value out of any bet that you play just Derby itself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously that's the beauty of the Derby, right? Is you have 20 different betting choices. You're going to get prices no matter who you like. I more meant that from the standpoint of if you don't have a strong opinion, there's no reason to push, 3/4 of your bankroll just because it's the Kentucky Derby. I guess that's what but that's a good point. I appreciate you bringing that up. There's a couple people in the chat. Then we'll move into our next point that I want to bring up. Horsin, I haven't fast track. God, I'm so terrible. But I'm just gonna call you Slippy, my friend. I know I don't pronounce horses' names right. No way I'm gonna pronounce usernames right. So Slippy, thanks so much for joining the show. I haven't seen your name before. Greatly appreciate you joining in. Shout out to everyone out there. Razor sharp picks, my friend. Thanks so much for joining in. Greatly appreciate it. And nice hit earlier this week. I did see to end Keeneland off. That was it was a fantastic hit, my friend. So much the shout out to you. But guys, we're gonna go into a bet that I know a lot of people like to play for the Derby because you do get that value. Ryan, I'm gonna start with you. When talking about trifectas and superfectas, and this is where I'm going to open up you guys to, if you guys want to bring in specific horses that you want to key in third or fourth, maybe at bigger prices, feel free to expound on that. Obviously, this is a handicapping show after all, so we do want to give some opinions as we continue to talk about this. But again, this is another bet, Ryan, where people think they have to spend a ton to be able to include all these bombs that might make it in there, but just because it's the Kentucky Derby or because it is the Kentucky Derby, that should allow you to either throw bombs in or throw bombs out.
Yeah, 100%. First, I don't play the trifecta in the Derby. Never have, never will. It's the superfecta for me. It's $1. And the way I've approached it the past 3 years, I haven't managed to string all the winners together. Didn't have two fills in there. Didn't have Mystic Dan up the rail. Didn't have Rich Strike. Whatever. But you just key the favorite somewhere underneath. That's what I plan to do this year. Journalism, by far the best horse in the race. He's the most mature. He just has the best stride. He has the best look to him. He's mature. He handles everything really well. He more or less makes his own trip. I'm going to key him in second, third, and fourth. I just have to be right in those other spots. Obviously, it's $1. The pools are massive. The payouts are fantastic. So even with a favorite like Journalism, who's probably going to be in the 5-2 range, when you pair up all the prices around him and you're playing for $1 superfecta, the payouts are going to be tremendous. So, the favorite is, it often shows up. Last year, I did not have Fierceness in my super because I hated that horse. But, I had the horse that probably should have been the favorite and was your eventual 3-year-old champ, but we don't need to talk about it because I know that's a sore subject.
Name does not get said around here.
Moving on. That's kind of my approach to the Derby. If I like the favorite, I'm going to key that horse underneath in all spots. I'm going to use my top picks on top in first place, my maybe top 2-3 picks, and then B's and C's kind of make up the rest. Fourth place, I will get a little generous if I have the bankroll, but that's kind of how I approach it because, again, there's so much money in these pools, and there's a lot of money to be made, but you have to have an opinion. It really starts there.
And the also eligible if that horse gets in, because I know how you feel,
of course,
about the 21. But no, I think that's a really good point. And obviously, Terry Frank, thanks so as well. Terry, thanks so much for commenting. Especially if you know the favorite in your mind, if you know the favorite's going to run second, third, or fourth, or anywhere in the top 4 for that matter, it saves you a bunch of money than waiting, especially if you're playing a caveman, right? If you're playing like horses over horses over horses over horses, not necessarily in an ABC format, it's you're not weighting journalism really necessarily the same as a horse that you're throwing in there at 50-1, right? You're just trying to have that 50-1 in there to hopefully have that horse come in that position. So if you key the horse in second, third, and fourth, like Ryan's doing, and journalism comes in that place, you have a lot more money in theory to be able to play more horses in first, third, and fourth, and obviously journalism in third and fourth, vice versa. So I think that's a very good point to bring up, Ryan. So I appreciate that. Just going to keep going around. Charlie, going to go next to you. Again, I know you're not the biggest trifecta and superfecta player, but I know that when a horse presents itself that you like at a decent price, you're going to be willing to play those trifectas and superfectas, keying them as Ryan kind of talked about.
Yeah, and this is definitely, a race where I'd actually be more interested in doing it because there's enough value that it's worth me taking the chance with the payouts. For me, the strategy, sort of at least how I've been personally approaching it, is sort of just tiering horses in terms of what I sort of think their floor and ceiling is, and then working around that accordingly for where I play them. So I figured out for me horses personally that I don't think have a shot in hell of getting into the top 4 and keep those out. Then finding horses, that I think, their ceiling is 4th or 3rd, and then having horses 2nd and 1st, and then just sort of looking at what their actual odds are and figuring out what value makes sense to me. So like for me personally, even though I have journalism as one of my A's, I have them as, for me, in my top tier with Sovereignty and Sandman. That's for me the top 3 horses talent-wise. Because of the odds I'm going to get, he is one that I'm going to try to beat. But like Ryan said, he's going to be a horse I'm absolutely going to be using 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Like we talked about, on the other show, Kyle, we talked about sort of with journalism, you kind of have to take the stand of either, you full on believe in him or you don't with how you play him. And I'm just going to bank on him running 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. But then for me, it's also like you were saying, trying to find those value horses that you think can make a big impact. Like, for example, for me, Grande personally is a horse I'm very high on. I think he's going to get the jump on all of them. I think, we're going to have the bad speed. The only good speed I think that'll hold it all is Rodriguez, but I don't think he'll be able to stay up because of how fast they go. I think Grande gets the jump on all the closers. I just don't think he'll be able to hold them off. But so, at 20-1, that's a horse I'm definitely going to mix in. Publisher, I know he's the maiden, but he's got a really nice kick and he's going to get the setup. Absolutely a horse I'll try to key in certain ways in 3rd or 4th. And another one I'll give a shout out to is I know a lot of people in the chat have talked about him, is Chunk of Gold. And yes, in some way, shape, or form, I will use him in 4th. And I know it seems unlikely, but because of the value, it's worth the risk for me. And then, to be honest, I'll mainly be keen Sandman and Sovereignty in 1st. But then I also do want to at least have, and I'm glad Paul Conlon said that about Grande, because I was going to say I do want to have one Insanity ticket at least for a try or super, where I choose one bomb to be in 1st, and I've decided that one's going to be Grande for me. I
mean, like I said, you kind of compared them to Mage. You kind of compared Grande to Mage in that point where he's lightly rated. Don't do that.
Don't do that, Noah. That was bad.
That was bad. Come on, man. In live TV, what are we doing here? Yeah, I know. You're rolling dice. The horse racing dice game, if you know. Bad luck on the guy in the middle's part. But Charlie compared him to Mage, right? Where he's lightly raced. He ran super well in his one prep, and now he's going to run back in the Kentucky Derby and probably get the jump on a lot of closers. That's another likely one to me, is along with Rodriguez, that most likely to have the lead at the top of the stretch. Pat, going to you. I know Charlie kind of stole your thunder there with the horse you're probably going to use in one of your keys, but how do you, and I know you're a big fan of the reverse tri key.
Yeah, Grande will definitely be my reverse tri key. But I will say Sovereignty will be used in pretty much all of my supers, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd across the board. And then Grande, who I do have a future on, so I'm going to try and weigh that in a way where I'm going to have Grande in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and not really play the horse on top. Just from the standpoint of maybe I'll do a little win bet, but I just don't feel like putting all that on Grande's might be worth it considering the odds. But I do think Sovereignty will be my key throughout the superfecta, which I will be playing.
And like Ryan talked about, your keys necessarily don't have to be big price horses. You can have prices come around Sovereignty coming in 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, or 1st for them. You said 1st, 2nd, 3rd. So, there's a whole bunch of different ways you can play a bet like this, Noah. And you're also that kind of guy that doesn't necessarily play these unless you have an opinion like that. In this case, Sovereignty could be that opinion for you as well.
It could. I would be more inclined to kind of take the strategy of both Pat and Ryan, where you just pick one horse and you go with it. Now, I don't think this really gets talked about enough, but if you're just kind of looking at pools like on a random Saturday at Churchill versus the Derby, is going to be way inflated. I mean, everyone and their mother is playing this bet, so you don't need a huge price to key in 2nd, 3rd, and 1st. If you have that kind of opinion, you just need to hit the damn thing. So that's how you would kind of key it around if you end up picking one. Now, if you're of the opinion of something similar to me, I can't really split the two, Sovereignty and journalism, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense for me to go those two in 1st and 2nd. Like if I were to go 2 by 2 and then I have to use quite a few, and then the last leg in a super for 4th, I mean, it could be anybody. It could be all 20 of them. And that's just with the $1 minimum. That's just something that I'm not interested in betting. So if I were to play something like that, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I just play the exact. I'll just play it 18-8 and 8-18. That makes a lot more sense.
I think you do have to, not to interject, Kyle, but I
No,
do
go
think
for it.
obviously you're going to look and see what the will pays are on that exacta at the time.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I think that try will still be way, way more than you think.
I mean, Ryan, go if you want to say anything, go ahead.
Oh, Noah just said you have to use all 20 horses in fourth. I think there's only 18 that you can make a case for.
That's fair.
Well, in a way, he's true.
And like I said, Patrick, we have 21 points locked up in the Kentucky Derby fantasy draft.
You do.
Yeah, exactly.
No matter which way you put it, even Journal on third, Onamati's probably running no better than 18th. But again, I'm not the biggest trifecta superfecta player ever, but Noah brought up such a good point that a lot of us already hit on and a lot of people know. But these pools, especially for the Derby, are going to be unbelievably inflated to the point where if it does come, chalk, fourth choice, second choice, it's still going to pay nice. Like, it's not going to be like your normal Monday at Parks where if the favorite wins, you're getting $9 on a dollar trifecta. It's not going to be like that. So don't feel like that, even though you if you're like me and you feel so strongly about the favorite, it doesn't mean that you can't play it because you know that you have a favorite on top. There's many different ways that you can make money, especially on Derby days. So again, just because your opinion might be the favorite or second favorite for that matter, doesn't mean that you are saying, oh, I'm not going to get paid, I'm going to back off of this bet. There's always money to be made in the Kentucky Derby, no matter who you like. Guys, go into the chat real quick, then we'll move on to our third point. John Judge said it's bankroll dependent, but identify your exacta and then use all in the tries and all in supers. If you're right, you sweep. Look, absolutely. But if you're talking about the Derby, right, it's going to cost the people a little bit more. And you said it's bankroll dependent, which is absolutely correct. But if like they said, anyone can run fourth. Not anyone. You say 18, but there's a lot of different horses that can run third and fourth in this type of race. And if they're big prices, you're going to get paid. But of course, as John said, it is bankroll dependent. But John Judge, hadn't seen your name before. Thank you very much. Rob N says Churchill Downstakes looks awesome. It absolutely does. Tune in. I believe it's Wednesday night, if I'm not mistaken, where they're covering the late pick 5 here on the HHH Racing podcast. That is absolutely Ponies on Demand. I saw his name for the first time last show. Luxor and Sovereignty. Look, Luxor Cafe is another horse that we haven't talked about too much in that. So that's definitely another horse that's going to be running late and can definitely swoop in to those tries and exactas. Real quick, guys, I want to talk about the power picks again. If you guys weren't here at the top of the show, we have a ton of people watching. Can't thank you guys all enough for joining in here. But we have a Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks power picks package. It's our tip sheet that we have. I'm going to pull it up on the screen right now, and I'll go full screen for this. If you go to hhhracingpodcast.com, this is what pops up, and you can see at the top of the screen, it says, click here to subscribe to our Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks power picks tip sheet. And what do you get with that, guys? It's 20 pages or more for both the entirety of Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby, over 20 pages in total. You get full card and stakes ABC grids, top 3 stake selections from every single co-host on the HHH Racing podcast, best bets, long shot plays, spot plays, and price plays that everyone loves from the normal power picks that are done over on Patreon. Each for both tip sheets, might I add, for both Oaks and Derby Day, plus suggested horizontal plays, pick 4, pick 5, 2-day horizontals that we've kind of mentioned a little bit on here. So all the information is on here. You can see who does and what you're going to get, who will be making the picks, what's included. It's all on hhhracingpodcast.com, guys. So if you guys are at all interested, it's only, it's a lot cheaper than some of the other packages that you get. And it's a ton of information. So could not recommend it more from a complete unbiased standpoint. It's a ton of information for not a whole lot of money comparatively to others out there. So appreciate everyone watching. Let's keep it going. Basically the last thing we're going to talk about here, and I feel like this is a big one, guys, because even though we've talked about it a lot, right, where no matter who you pick in the Derby, you're going to get odds that you can make money on. But the problem is that a lot of people, I don't know if anyone else does this, but I do when I place, win bets on horses, or I have horses that I want to play throughout the day. When they don't run very good thirds, I would love to see, what price they're going to be come post time. And if they're, a certain amount, certain odds, let's say the horse I want to play is, 5-1 morning line. I won't bet him below 7-2, but he goes off at 5-2. I don't think that's good enough value for me to take a win bet on that horse, so I don't play. So I feel like this is a very good conversation to have based on our Kentucky Derby picks and what we're willing to play. We're just going to talk about acceptable win odds, and we're going to kind of go around, and I want everyone to chime in. Feel free to rebuttal on someone or anything like that. Excuse me. I'm going to talk about journalism first, and I know not everyone likes journalism on the win end. However, as people would agree and people have said, he's probably the most talented in the field. But again, it is the Kentucky Derby, which I feel like, shorter. I mean, I would not be willing to take short odds on this horse, very short odds on this horse. And I'll talk about that, of course, in a second. Charlie, journalism, again, I know he's not your top pick, but from a value standpoint, when there's 20 horses in the race, what would your acceptable win odds be willing to be on a horse like journalism that in a lot of people's minds stands out in this field, but he's going to be very short compared to the rest?
Yeah, for me, honestly, this is just kind of my rule period for the Derby. This isn't necessarily, obviously I know I won't get anywhere near this. This is just for me personally in a race of this, size and magnitude and difficulty. I wouldn't take on any horse less than, I'd say, probably 4-1, 9-2. I think realistically, the best case you'll get on journalism is probably 3-1. But yeah, for me, I'd say probably 9-2, 5-1, maybe 4-1 if I was really sold on journalism. But for me, I'd say probably 9-2 or 5-1.
I mean, look, and at the end of the day, it is the Kentucky Derby. Again, guarantee you're not going to get that on journalism.
Agreed.
And then in your mind, you would not play him because he's
Right,
not going to
not
be
straight up. I could play him in other ways then.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. But on the straight up win end, you're not going to be willing to play him. Patrick, off of journalism, of course, you can piggyback on whatever Charlie said, but for your top pick, I believe, who is your top pick in the Kentucky Derby? And we'll get there, of course, in a second. But
Sovereignty.
it is Sovereignty. Okay. So, if you're looking at Sovereignty, Sovereignty is what? 5-1. He ain't wrong way. Yeah, there you go. What is he's 5-1 morning line? What would you be willing to take on Sovereignty come post time? I know a lot of you guys like Sovereignty on top, so feel free to piggyback.
Yeah, it'd be 4-1. I would. That's the lowest I would go.
Okay, so again, and that's the beauty of it, right? Is that Charlie said 9-2 on journalism, but Pat's willing to take a lower price than what Charlie said on the win end for Sovereignty. So that's the reason we have these conversations, because a lot of people have different opinions. Patrick, again, I know you don't like journalism on top, but what would you need to play a horse like him in the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, I'm dead on with Charlie on the odds that I would mess with journalism. It would be 5-1. If he's 5-1, honestly, that's a concern probably because he's not going to be 5-1. But if he is 5-1, I would bet the horse.
Yeah, and see, but again, that's the thing, right? And then if he's not taking money like that, and in the Kentucky Derby, there's a large money difference between 5-2 and 5-1. So that's a very good point.
I was just going to say also, I think just the key thing for the viewers to understand again as we're going person by person for each of these horses, because I see some people saying, why would you not want 3-1 or 5-2? That's your value. That's completely fair. I think the key thing again to understand here is acceptable odds based off of how you view the horse, what you view value is on the horse. So if you're not as high, like Patrick's top pick is Sovereignty, same with me, like I'd probably agree with Pat. I'd probably say 4-1, 9-2 on Sovereignty. That's my top pick. So when we're going through each of these horses, it's based off of what we think of the horse, not necessarily like, oh, is that fair enough value? Because obviously, the way one person views a horse versus another is going to be vastly different.
Well, correct. Yeah. And that's a good point. That's a really good point to make. It's just, what would you need to see on the board to be like, oh yeah, I'll bet that horse to win now. Exactly. It's kind of just that switch that flips on, just saying, okay, that's good enough. I will play that horse now. Noah, going to you. I know you like Sovereignty. You talked about 8-18 as well. When approaching something like this, what's your thought, at least on the win odds and what's acceptable?
Okay, well, starting with journalism, I think day of, he's gonna kind of flip flop between 5-2 and 3-1. If I had to guess, I'm gonna lean towards 5-2 because I don't want to be kicking myself if he clicks the 5-2, and because of that little reason, I don't have him or I don't bet him in the race. With that being said, I think 5-2 is fair because if everyone runs to their best ability, I think he wins by 2 or 2.5 lengths. So that's what I think. That's not what everybody thinks. Like, I mean, obviously it's a Derby. You can have trouble, yada, yada, yada. But he, I think, has to endure just the slightest amount of trouble, or at least have an off day to not win the race. So 5-2 is where I cut the line. Sovereignty, I think I would be about where Pat is. I think about 4-1. I think 4-1 is probably about fair. I want at least 10 for a $2 mutual. So 4-1 there and 5-2. They're not great, but that's just how I would view the race.
Yeah, no, look, and like I said, everyone views it differently, but I completely agree with everything that he said. Obviously, I'm very high on one horse versus the other in this conversation, but it's definitely interesting to see how people's opinions differ based on Ryan. I don't actually know exactly how you're looking at the Derby, but again, same type of question to you, my friend. Please feel free to expound. But also, there is a tornado watch around my house right now, so if I go out, Noah, it's going to be on you, my friend, just to get you ready a little bit. But Ryan, go ahead.
Hey, if you get swept away, I heard you just click your heels twice and you get you wind up
bingo
home. Follow the yellow brick road, whatever you got to do, man. Yeah, for the Derby, journalism and sovereignty, they're both very likely winners, in my opinion. I think obviously they're both going to be trip dependent. It's the Kentucky Derby. Every horse is trip dependent. So I have them both at 5-1 would be the lowest acceptable odds. I know I'm not going to get that on journalism. I might get that on sovereignty. But that doesn't mean you can't make value at 5-1 for journalism, whether that's the Oaks Derby double or, there's a million other ways you can approach that to get 5-1 or greater. But my top pick, who is, windy over there.
No, it's the Thunder, actually.
Yeah. Oh, or the Thunder, who I guess we'll get to in a second. But my top pick in the race is Burnham Square. I'm very excited to see him run. Lowest odds I'll take is 9-1 on him. I think anything lower than that obviously would be a good sign to where the smart money, even though it's a massive pool. Anything under that, I'm not going to have a win bet, but I will be playing that horse in pretty much every spot come Saturday. But again, it is all dependent on who you like and what your fair odds are. Like, in the Edgewood Stakes, I take 4-5 on Nitrogen, but that's just me.
Yep.
Somebody else can have a different opinion and want 4-1 on that horse, and that's fine too. So it's all just how you handicap, what your opinion is, and that's pretty much what it comes down to.
Yep. And look, and as much as I've talked about journalism, I wouldn't bet him at 5-2. I wouldn't do it. It's just too low, too many factors. But again, Ryan said it's beautiful that there's so many different wagers you can play into the Derby, out of the Derby to get more than 5-2 on journalism. 3-1 would be like a very, I could go one way or the other. If he's somehow 7-2, unspeakable things could happen. But
I have a question real quick. For journalism, if Flavien Prat was on board, what's the lowest odds you'd take on him?
Okay. Did you see that comment, Ryan?
No, I didn't actually.
This is right up your alley, isn't it?
Okay. Okay. So I'll answer this. I love Umberto, first of all. Out on the West Coast, big Rispoli fan. Love him. But he rides the dirt similar to how he rides the turf, and that doesn't exactly translate super well. You find trouble a lot more on dirt. So honestly, that has a huge factor in especially the Kentucky Derby. Santa Anita Derby, it didn't. Most of those other smaller fields, it doesn't. But I mean, he kind of found trouble in that 5-horse field in the Santa Anita Derby. That scares me for the Kentucky Derby. Journalism is the best horse. I would hope, he keeps him in the clear the whole time and just keeps that big engine rolling. But it concerns me for sure. If I had a guy who I will trust day in, day out, like Flavien Prat, like Luis Saez, maybe Jose Ortiz, depending on where the moon's at. Those are guys that I would really trust, and they would lower the price. Like if Flavien Prat was on board, I would take probably 2-1 on journalism, because I think that's the best animal in the field and it's the best jockey in the field. So when you get both like that, obviously it's a very short price for the Derby, but that's just how I look at it. So I think jockey bookings make a huge difference. I didn't see that comment, but thank you for whoever said it and whoever brought it up.
No, absolutely. And I feel like that's a very good point to bring up. Look, in Umberto, and your point is completely taken. Of course, he won on trickery last year. However, that was on the turf, and that's the point Ryan brought up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I'm banking on just journalism being the better animal. And if he can he's tactical, he can make his own trip. If he sits somewhere, mid-pack, not a little bit ahead of mid-pack, somewhere like 8th to 9th to 10th, and he's able to tip out, just a clear run. If you give that horse a clear run, I think he wins. But, of course, that's the problem. So that's why I'm not willing to take 5-2 on this horse, because there's so many variables. But I can get, I have good opinions in the Oaks. I have good opinions in, the race after the Derby, the race before the Derby. There's so many different ways, exactas, all this stuff that you can make money on journalism rather than taking the horse at 5-2. Guys, I want to bring up one thing, and then we will get into our picks for the Derby and Oaks and end the show. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Greatly appreciate the massive audience we have tonight. If you guys enjoyed the podcast, please hit the like button here on YouTube, or if you're on X, please come on over to YouTube and hit the like button to show your support. We would greatly appreciate it, as it's 100% completely free. Noah, Charlie, I know you two are both very high on this horse, so I want to get your opinion on this. Block Party, a guy's name that I have not seen before. Greatly appreciate you joining the show. Hi, gentlemen. I have been waiting for Simply Joking all season. I have $500 aside for her. Should I play straight win bet, play across the board, or play exotics? Any recommendations? And the fact is that I will give everyone just the morning line on Simply Joking before we start talking about her. She is 10-1 on the morning line. Noah, I'll throw it to you first, because I know you have a strong opinion on her. And then Charlie, you can feel free to, and then everyone else can chime in as well.
Yeah, I do like her, as Block Party does too. And I think what I'll be doing day of is probably playing her to win, and then just a straight good cheer over Simply Joking. Just because she's 10-1, and you're not going to get a ton of value with good cheer and like either a try or super if she does win the race. I think just a straight exacta seems like the type of bet that I want to have, and the bet that I'm going to get the most value out of. But if you want to throw her in 3rd and 4th, I wouldn't dissuade you from doing that. Oh, he's muted.
You're either muted or the tornado took your sound.
Yeah, I'm trying to block out the outside noise, so my apologies, but I do appreciate. Charlie, I know you have a strong opinion on this horse as well. You've liked her for a while now. Maybe not her horse, her ways to win necessarily, but there's many other ways you can play, as well as maybe having that little bit of insanity that if she does win, you can still cash a pretty decent amount on her.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing, I don't think you'll get 10-1, but I'm guessing you'll probably get 8 or 9-1. I don't think she's going to drop that much. I liked her, and then I was a little concerned about all the speed, but with the way her draw worked out, I actually like her a lot more. Obviously, everybody has different budgets. For me personally, I think at that price, I don't think you need to save $500 to the side. I think you could budget it a little more. I would probably start with, 50 to 60 to win on her and just keep it simple if that's how you really feel about her. And then I would play some exactas with her under some of the key horses. And then I would just weigh it off of, we talk about this all the time, like Dutching, doubles, or exactas. I would try to figure out what sort of price you have in mind that you would like on your exactas as a hedge, and then just work around that way. For me, I mean, the main horses I would hedge with is, like Good Cheer and Quiet Side, obviously are main favorites. I'd pick like 1 or 2 of the shorter prices, and then maybe 1 or 2 middling or longer prices that you think have an outside chance that you put a lot less. So maybe that's, a Ballerina D'Oro, or maybe that's a 5G, or Take Charge Milady, someone like that. So I'd pick a few exactas like that. And then the only other thing I'd say is maybe play a double. Like if the race before the Oaks or after the Oaks, you maybe find 1 or 2 horses that you really like, maybe pick a couple in the race before or after and play some doubles around Simply Joking. So that's how I would do it. Again, I'd take advantage of the price that you have on her to not have to place, all your odds in one basket or too big of a bet. I probably wouldn't make any single bet more than $50 on her.
Again, but at 10-1, that still nets you $500 some odd dollars.
Yeah,
so
that could be a whole day right there.
I mean, yeah, but if you have 500 to bet, maybe you bet 100 and make, you double up at least if she wins, but the more likely outcome based on odds. You play good cheer over her and stuff like that. Many different ways you can go, but thanks so much for the comment block party. It's a very interesting and hope. I got, good luck to you, and hopefully she runs well. Last one I want to talk about real quick is just a comment I saw, and there is no dumb questions, guys. Please ask anything in the chat, especially we catered to everyone, new players, old players, anything like that. So Shelly brings up, she said, I'm afraid to ask a dumb newbie question on a win bet at 3-1. Is the payout the same in any race, or does it pay out more with a pool as large as the Derby? Because we've been talking about it, guys, where, the exactas pools are so inflated. They pay more just because there's more money in the pool. Whatever win bet, the odds that you see on the screen are exactly how they are in the win pool. So no matter what, how big the pools are, anything like that, what you see on the screen is what you get from a win bet standpoint. So that's what the odds are. They're based on the win pool. So $3, yeah, it'll net you 3-1, probably around 820 to 880, somewhere in that range. But Shelly, again, no dumb questions at all. Thank you, guys. And Block Party says, I truly appreciate you guys taking the time. Great insight. I'll be returning for your recap show. Hopefully it is in your favor, Block Party. Thank you so much for the kind words. I greatly appreciate it. Guys, last thing, again, not all of us are going to be on the same show again. And to everyone out there, I feel like it would be doing a disservice if we didn't talk about the Oaks and Derby, and we didn't give our picks for the last part of the show that we will be together. So, guys, Kentucky Oaks Derby picks. We will not be expounding on this. Of course, if you want to hear full in-depth coverage, tune in to either the full Kentucky Oaks that is going to be tomorrow night, the Kentucky Derby preview that we just did before this show, or we have shows coming out on Tuesday night at 8 and Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, covering the full late pick 5 with Howard, Pete, and Paul, covering in-depth every single race, the last 5 races on both Oaks and Derby Day that is ending in those big races. So I'll just go around. Noah, I'll let you go first. We might mainly top picks, guys, but if you want to add in, you have a feeling for someone underneath at a decent price or anything like that, feel free to give out as well.
Yeah, so top pick for this year's Derby is Sovereignty. I'll be using Sovereignty and Journalism pretty much evenly within my bets. And then Luxor Cafe is a game time decision for me. He's one I'm going to wait for the price. So it would be those 3 max. And then into the Oaks, good cheer I'm going to have to use, but the top pick is Simply Joking. So those are the 2 I would use. So 2 by 3, I'll probably mix those around somehow and maybe some Oaks Derby doubles. And
I know my man Block Party likes to hear that one. Patrick, moving over to you.
Yeah, so for the Oaks on Friday, I like Ballerina D'Oro in there. Hoping to get a nice price with her. And then in the Derby, I like Sovereignty. And then we'll be playing with Grande a little bit too. Obviously having that future. So yeah, those are kind of what I'm going to be working with. I just think the Oaks, as I brought up early, is wide open. So there's multiple horses that I'm going to try and beat good cheer with.
Hey, like I said, this is one of those races as well where you either take a stand with her or you try to beat her with horses that will be good prices. Charlie?
Yeah, so starting with the Derby, again, I know I hopped on earlier today to give my thoughts. So, yeah, I'm mainly going to be using Sovereignty and Sandman in the Oaks Derby doubles and just what bets I use in general. Again, I think journalism makes a ton of sense, and I'll find ways to use them defensively, but probably won't be a main pick for me. And then the other thing I'm going to try to use in doubles is I always think it's important to just try to find one bomb or long shot that you think has a chance to win. So for me, that'll be Grande. And then in terms of the Oaks, I'm definitely going to be using Good Cheer a lot, and then I'm going to be using Simply Joking a ton. I really like how the draw worked out for her, so those will be my main 2. And then the other one that I'm going to use a little bit defensively is Quiet Side. I think she's very talented. I just did not like the post draw for her at all.
And I think that's very fair. Is obviously Quiet Side drew the 14, but of course we saw the 14 win 2 or 3 years ago. It's slipping my mind, but of course Pretty Mischievous won that year from the 14. Ryan, last chance I think for you, if I'm not mistaken, or will you be? I think you might be joining us tomorrow for the Oaks preview.
If I'm joining you tomorrow, then I'll be there tomorrow. But I had no idea. But I'm happy to join you guys always. Always. Bettin and Boozin, and I've done plenty of boozing today. So I'll start with the Oaks. Nobody named the horse that has the highest speed figure and the horse that's going to win the race. That's right. He's back at Churchill Downs. Tenma is winning the Kentucky Oaks. I know that last effort was what it was, but he's going to find a way to win it. I mean, the race sets up for her. She likes to have a target in front of her. Yeah, I'm out of beer, and I'm not going to go grab one now. The show's over. The race is going to set up for her. There is a ton of speed. Simply Joking, in my opinion, doesn't need the lead type, which she's very talented, but I think there's a ton of other speed in there, and that might compromise her a little bit along with some others. I think Tenma and Good Cheer are going to be sitting in very similar positions. I know Tenma hasn't beat much on the West Coast, but Good Cheer, all in all, has not beat these top Philly contenders. So I think it's kind of just, you got to pick one. The value I'm going to get on Tenma is so much better than the value I'm going to get on Good Cheer, even though I do think Good Cheer should win the race. I'm going to take a stab at Tenma. In the Kentucky Derby, I said this a little bit earlier, Burnham Square, he's a strong A for me. I'm really excited to see him run. I obviously had him in the Bluegrass, as I'm sure Noah can remember. I damn near lost my voice on Bluegrass Day, but that was a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing him coming back, and I think Ian Wilkes is going to have that horse ready for an absolute A-plus effort, and I love the way Brian has been training him, basically getting a paint stripe on the side of him with these right-on-the-rail works. So I anticipate another rail skimming ride for Brian Hernandez, and hopefully that ends up in a Derby win.
I mean, look, it might as well be if he gets the rail come Derby Day. We've seen what happens with what's happened before. It could definitely happen again. Ryan, good luck. My Oaks, I'm going with a horse no one said yet. I think Kenny runs it back to back. I really do like Take Charge Milady. That last effort at Keeneland in the Ashland behind Lacara. Honestly, I'll be completely honest. I don't know where that effort for Lacara came from, at least on that day. She ran well on the Suncoast. I also didn't see her getting that easy of a lead necessarily either, but Take Charge Milady was absolutely flying late, gets an extra 16th of a mile, which I think only helps her, by Scat Daddy out of Take Charge Indy, which of course is by AP Indy. So there's a ton of distance pedigree in there. The pace looks to heat up, as a bunch of my co-hosts have touched on before. Take Charge Milady, 12-1 morning line. I don't know if you'll end up getting that. Probably not. But I think at a nice price, she could upset the field, even though Good Cheer is going to be your heavy favorite. What's up, Ryan?
Can I add one thing, Kyle? I loved Take Charge Milady's last race. I was right with you. The issue that she's had with her hoof this week has completely thrown me off of her.
Yeah,
I think she is insanely talented. I love her run style for this race. I can't trust it off of, she missed a work. She's kind of been iffy. I hope she makes it in the gate. I hope she runs her best race, and I hope she stays healthy, obviously, because I think she's very talented. And if she makes the gate, I'm with you. She would be a major threat. But there were a couple things that threw me off this week, and it's kind of one of those things where everything has to go perfect,
Yep. No, absolutely. And I feel like that's a very good thing to bring up. I'm glad you did. Kenny McPeak has obviously still had his confidence. Trainer talk could be, but definitely will not be just playing Take Charge Milady, as I will get to for the Take Charge Milady. Take Charge Milady in the Oaks. I'm messing myself up now. I've been a very big fan of Quiet Sides for a long time. The pace scenario is the one question mark. She sat off really nicely in her last two at Oaklawn. This is going to be the true test for her. However, I think she could be up to the challenge for Jose Ortiz. Just a matter of getting over from that 14 post and getting into a nice position. But other than that, I'm just going to try and play a couple against Good Cheer. Going to probably include Good Cheer in some type of bet, whether that's the Oaks Turf Derby pick 3 or something like that. Create a little bit more value, because in the Derby, guys, I've mentioned this on the Derby show, and I got, way to take a stand. Every single bet that I'm going to play that leads into the Derby, it's going to be singled in the journalism. I think he's the best animal in the entire field. You have to take a stand somewhere. He's going to be mid-pack. He's going to get first run on a horse like Sovereignty, a horse like Sandman. Going to get a first run on a lot of those. I don't necessarily think Rodriguez is up to snuff with the other main contenders in here. I think Rodriguez has the lead at the top of the stretch. However, I think journalism blows by him in a mage-type effort where he goes by at the 8th pole. Spurts away from it. Mage. But he spurts away at the 8th pole, and people close on him late, but no one can catch him.
And Sandman pulls the Angel of Empire?
Yeah. Well, hey, a very good third. And trust me, it'll be very on par for what I've done at Keeneland. Shout out to anyone that
might have to be your
there.
new little bio under your name. Instead of boozing and not losing, might have to become a very good
very good third. Fantastic. A very good third and a very good fourth. These guys that keyed my horses on the last day, they won fun money off of my win opinions. But guys, everyone in the chat has been fantastic. Again, guys, we have Kentucky Derby shows coming to you all through Wednesday. Wednesday night will be the late pick 5 on Derby Day, ending in the Kentucky Derby. So that is, of course, going to be races. Let me pull it up right here if I'm not mistaken. Races 8 through 12, all grade 1s. It's a fantastic sequence. Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, will be races 7 through 11, ending in the Kentucky Oaks. We already did the Kentucky Derby preview. The Kentucky Oaks preview will be tomorrow. Tape shows coming out from both PHP and BNB. You must subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of it. Tons and tons of content coming your guys' way. And again, unbiasedly, I think we do one of the best jobs going through just as diligent as possible and talking about every single way that these derbies and the Oaks and Derby can come out. So just thank you guys all so much for all the support. It's been absolutely fantastic all week and continue to show that out through the next couple days. For my brilliant co-hosts, Noah Maher, Patrick Kunsel, Ryan Anderson, and Charlie Freeman, this has been your host, Kyle Roscoe, for a special edition of the HHH Racing Podcast on how to bet the 2025 Kentucky Derby. And we'll Bettin and Boozin sign it off here, guys. And until next time we see you, crush your bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next Kentucky Derby show. Have a good night. Jesus.
If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing Podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.